Good evening, everybody. We are, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:31. And in the spirit of reconciliation, we would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy members Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, the Stoney Nakoda of Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Wesley First Nations, the Dene of Tsuut'ina First Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all those that made Treaty 7 lands their home. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Friendly reminder to our admin and council to please mute or vibrate or shut off your phone, or perhaps take this time to do an update. Yeah, so thank you very much, everybody, for being here tonight. I'd like to start off by thanking administration and thanking our fire chief and everybody that has been involved with keeping the town residents and us informed as to the rainfall and the water movement through the community. There's clearly some people that are still have 2013 on their minds, and it was really great to have all that information out to them as quickly as it was available to them. So thank you, administration, and to anybody else that's watching. Thank you to the fire chief and his team. Also, thank you to Volker Steven, if I said that right, for coming down a couple of times and clearing some debris from the bridge, as we know that was a contributing factor in 2013 as well. So thank you all around. Okay, so we will take a motion to, excuse me, I'll go back. Are there any additions to the agenda tonight? Okay, thank you very much. I will take a motion. Thank you, Councillor Bain, to accept the agenda as presented. All those in favor? Wonderful, pass unanimously. Thank you. And I will take a second motion to adopt the minutes from our June 1st, 2022 meeting. Please and thank you. Councillor Thompson. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Carried unanimously once again. Awesome. Okay, so at this time, 6:33, I will open the floor up to our question period. A friendly reminder for anybody watching, given the new format that we have, if you have questions and you cannot make it in person, feel free to send them along to us and we will address them. It's not a vetting process, it's just so that we can get your questions answered. There are no questions in the chambers and none that we have being sent in to us. So at 6:34, we will close the question period and move right along. To bylaws 7.2, which has to do with our election signs. And I'm going to pass this one over to admin because I read this a couple times today and I wasn't really sure where I was going. So I'll pass it over to you guys to give us the best solution here.
So as council's aware that we're trying to bring things in alignment with our neighbors across the river upon the election for November 28th. And at this time, I'm going to hand this over to our returning officer, who is in charge of election signs and or bylaws that impact election signs, but you do have a couple choices that you can.
So I apologize if I confused people. I had to cram a lot of information very quickly after a late JPAC meeting to get it on this agenda for you. So basically, so the JPAC committee did not make any recommendations. So basically that lets you guys do whatever you want to do with your election signage for this first election. So I didn't really make any recommendations here for you. I just tried to lay out what the options are for you. So you can choose to keep bylaw 2021-11, which is the election signs bylaw that we wrote in time for the last general election. If we do that, then the planning department should also be directed to amend the land use bylaw because that did not happen after the last one for a variety of reasons that were just confusing. So amending the land use bylaw does require a public hearing. So that is a little bit of a thing that you have to be aware of, that you'll have to go through. It is not a big amendment. They're just literally removing a couple of lines from the bylaw, but any amendment to the land use bylaw requires a public hearing. The election bylaw does give you a little bit more flexibility to manage election signs in public spaces. We can expand it to include fines. We can do whatever you want with that bylaw. If you want to keep it, it does give you that option. Many of the traditional spaces for public signs are not available in the way that they used to be because of physical things that have happened in our community, such as the addition of infrastructure in the public spaces. For those of you who've been around a long time, you'll remember driving west on the highway and seeing lots and lots of signs next to the campground, and on the opposite side of the highway, both of those spaces are filled with infrastructure now, much more filled, pathways and things. So it does limit the use of those spaces for election signage. The bylaw having that available provides some orderly alternatives for people. I would recommend that if you want to keep this bylaw but make amendments, that you bring it forward at the same time as the public hearing, so that the public can see exactly what's going on both sides of that coin. If you want to return to the land use bylaw provisions, then we just have to rescind bylaw 2021, which has to be done by a bylaw. So we'll bring a rescinding bylaw forward. This will not require a public hearing. So it is somewhat simpler to do. It would also bring you into alignment essentially with what Turner Valley is doing. Our provisions are very similar. We do have a fine in our land use bylaw now for signage. So there is an option there for that kind of enforcement, but the spaces are not very well defined. So the options for putting signage out are still, I don't want to say they're unregulated, but they're a little more free. If you wanted to change any of those land use bylaw provisions, you're back to holding a public hearing. So not that that's a challenge, it's just time consuming and there are costs. Those have to be advertised. So there are costs involved. However, council decides to manage their election signage, we'll make sure the handbooks put it all out there so that they know what's going on in both communities for this shared election. Is that clear?
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Councilor Thompson?
Personally, I just like to see us align with the land use bylaw. It just seems that it'll be easier for administration and less cost and not having to go with a public hearing. So that's the direction I'm kind of leaning.
Councilor Bain?
Rather than repeat everything that Heather just said, I agree 100%.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Clover?
No, we're supposed to be aligning. I really like the way the signs look all corralled, it's tidier. Also be contrary.
I also like that way, although for simplicity purposes, this is, I hate the term council of the day, but this is just something that it's like the amalgamated town is probably best suited to deal with afterwards. There's no sense in us spending, I don't see a lot of sense in spending the money with the public hearing when it could very well change, but that's my opinion. And I agree with you. Like, I think it's great to have them off grab. Councilor Redmond.
So we get rid of it. Where does it really allow people to put the signs? Like where are people going to put signs that might cause issue? And would it cause issue for the town or residents?
So the land use bylaw speaks to public lands in this particular instance.
Okay.
You as a homeowner can have whatever you want for election signs because there's no permits required. So if you want to have 3 different people post their signs on your front lawn, if they can do that in the middle of November, then more power to them and to you too. So as long as they don't exceed the size, 1 meter square, there's really not much on private property that we would deal with here, as long as it's permitted, allowed by the landowner. So other than that, we're talking about still about public lands here.
So instead of that, like, let's say by the water tower park there. So instead of doing just that little strip along there, they could go into the further playground or that further green space, and then they could do like a wraparound towards the playground, something like that. Or they could do more along the school and stuff like that. Is that school property?
There really isn't anything in here that says they cannot put it on a park.
Okay.
And that's not necessarily a great thing.
I think there's something in the parks bylaw that would come to do with that. Because
The
you're not-
bylaw takes precedence.
On the sign bylaw or the land use bylaw takes precedence, yeah.
How much of it passed? That's like signs and issue.
And I think the big thing too is like, it's almost December. So good luck to even, to all of us getting signs in the ground, right? Like, I struggled, you and I were cleaning up signs half the time just because of the wind. Yeah. Right? And some of the high school kids and stuff were tossing around, but I mean, I'm not gonna be spending a lot of time burying signs in the ground if it's frozen.
No,
I couldn't even get them into earth and they would break already.
then they have, I don't think there's save money and time.
Someone want to give me a motion?
I will give you that.
Okay,
The council agreed to direct administration to provide a bylaw to rescind bylaw 2021-11 election signs bylaw.
thank you, Councillor Thompson. Does anyone want to speak to that motion? All those in favor? All those opposed? 5 to 1. Okay, moving right along. 2020, action items 8.1, 2022 public auction.
It's one of the more unfortunate things that we have to bring forward to council typically on an annual basis. This year, we have one property that will have to be, that would be subject to public auction. Council is responsible for setting the date, the terms, and eventually the rate of what the assessed value or the market value of that property will come forward. That will come forward at the September 7th. Maybe for you, the landowner does have right up until the date and time of the public auction to be able to make payment for the amounts owing. So the way it works there's 2 different sets of rules for those who are not aware. There's one set of rules for mobile homes, which is only 1 year plus owing, and then on single family residence or any other residence that isn't a mobile home, then you would have 2 years plus the outstanding. So it actually is probably almost like 2 years in arrears. So, before we put these forward. So administration did make an error in the date. That council agreed to set the public auction date for Tuesday, November 1st.
Well, it's the 2023.
There will be no legal counsel available on November 4th. And so it was when we were, tax service people that we have conversations with did advise that there would be nobody available on the 4th to be able to represent. So the date had to be changed, and this was their preferred date, is November 1st.
Councillor Thompson.
Administration will be working very, very hard so that this doesn't happen, I'm sure. So I'd put forward the motions that are required.
Mhm.
The council agreed to be presented to the presented terms and conditions of sale for the 2022 public auction.
Does anyone want to speak to that? Okay, all those in favor? Carried unanimously.
Do you want me to do the second one?
Please do.
That council agreed to set the public auction date for Tuesday, November the 1st, 2022 at 10 a.m. at the Town Office Council Chambers.
Thank you, Councilor Thompson. Would anyone like to speak to that one? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Great. Well, we wish them all the best. Hopefully they get that stuff sorted out before we get to that point. Okay, 8.2. Appointment of designated officer, ARB and SDAB clerks. And yeah, I can pass this one back to the administration. If they'd like to speak to it.
So we do have a designated officer bylaw, which is attached for your reading pleasure. We do have a couple of amendments that need to be made. And Vernon, I'm going to let you talk about those amendments. First of all, it is the first reason is because we've also had to appoint Officer Hogan as one of the designated officers as well. So
Yeah, so the appointments are not actually part of the bylaw, but that is the reason that brought this to the table, is that we do need to appoint Officer Hogan. The bylaw in front of you has dated itself in that it still requires the Assessment Review Board clerk and the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board clerks to be designated officers. The act was amended to remove that requirement. So I have not appointed or asked you to appoint the clerks as designated officers, but in a separate appointment. Turner Valley Ledge Services are working with us, and these are bylaws that are on our list of things to fix. So in the alignment process, we'll just correct those two things. But in the meantime, there will be no appointments to fill those two spots. You are required by the MGA to still make an official council appointment of the clerk for both of those boards. So I'm just asking you to do those separately, but to reappoint them, to make those current as well.
Councilor Thompson.
Just wondering, like, what's the difference here? Designated officers, the position is in the bylaw. So what I have, I'm a bit confused. So the position is a designated officer is also outlined in the bylaw.
Yep.
But you're asking us to appoint the names?
Yes,
they have to be named.
yes. The bylaw creates the position. Council resolution appoints the person to that position.
Okay. That's where I was getting a bit confused. So, good, thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Thompson.
And is it Doug Jensen or would it be his company?
It's them.
It's person.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Kloiber,
I will read this first motion. That's allowed.
you can read all three. If you like.
That council agrees to appoint the following designated officers, rescinding all prior appointments: municipal assessor Doug Jensen, legislative services manager Brenda Staples, finance manager Shirley Campbell, planning and development officer Walter Cross, community peace officers Jim Berry and Matt Hogan. And that is the end of that motion.
Okay. See, O'Brien, let's speak to it.
No, I'm good. I just remembered something.
Okay.
Because there's a delegation of a delegation. Yeah, okay.
We can spray that one away with a piece of paper.
Yeah, we'll spread that other piece of paper out. It's just so that the development officer has citing authority on non-compliance permits. And so just remembering that as Rod has delegated a portion of his authority to Denise to be able to do stuff like this and compliance issues.
You don't need to change.
You do not need to change it.
Does anyone want to speak to the motion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Deputy Mayor Kloiber,
Reading.
please do.
That council agree to appoint Verna Staples as intermunicipal subdivision and development appeal board clerk for the town of Black Diamond, rescinding all prior appointments.
Thank you. Does anyone want to speak to this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried unanimously,
Lucky number 3.
please do.
That council agreed to appoint Verna Staples as assessment review board clerk for the town of Black Diamond with duties as prescribed by the Municipal Government Act and all statutes and regulations relating to the assessment complaint process. The clerk's remuneration will be in accordance with the employee's compensation.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak to the third motion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Well done, Deputy Mayor. Good job. Good reading.
Hard to say.
I'm so glad you did that. That's how I would have said it too.
That's good, it's correct.
Okay, 8.3. A coal policy for Alberta 2022 and beyond. This was a bit of a read today. If you took some time to read it, great. Pardon me? I read it today. Just okay. Okay. Does anyone want to speak to this? Councillor Bain.
I don't see why we have to add all the whereases and who wrote it and policy experts, et cetera, We either agree to endorse the proposed policy or we don't.
Yeah.
So I'm prepared to make a motion and we can debate it.
I'm fine with that. If I'm,
The
yeah,
council agreed to endorse the proposed policy titled A Coal Policy for Alberta 2022 and Beyond, prepared by a grassroots coalition of Albertans. Period, full stop, end of sentence. And I have nothing further to say. Thank you.
thank you, Councillor Bain. Does anyone want to speak to this? May I?
I don't know that I agree with everything in this policy. So, I don't know if I'm keen on endorsing something that we really didn't have anything to do with. We weren't involved in it. Yes, there's lots of people that were, but I just don't see. Personally, I don't necessarily disagree that coal's got to go to some extent. Well, coal's got to go, but there's other things out there that they're currently mining for that are worth and worse option, and one of them is lithium. And so I'm having a real trouble with this because anyway, for those reasons, I mean, even on the news last night, I don't know if anyone noticed, but there's been 7 house fires due to lithium batteries. Some of them charging electronic bikes. And lithium, you just can't get rid of it. Like lithium batteries are super horrible for the environment. I think with coal and use of coal, there's enough technology now that they're able to do some cleaner production for heating, etc. So I'm not totally on board with this. So I would not vote in favor of endorsing it.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. When I was reading through it today, I was kind of the same opinion where I would have preferred to have kind of accepted as information and then kind of wait and see. I was looking through the list and High River is the only town on that list. So I was curious and to your point about, you know, contributions and being a part of the process, I think that that's an important step for, you know, for us to be part of that. Yeah, I would prefer to sit and kind of wait, maybe gather a little bit more information in regards to, you know, where this is going to go. I just don't want to jump the gun and get in front of it And then, you know, have to backpedal at some point if that's the case.
I agree.
So, yeah, and I really, yeah, and the bigger thing for me too is just looking at that list, a lot of private industry and I'm all for, you know, the grassroots thing where they're, you know, making sure that everybody's heard and whatnot, but that's my opinion. I would prefer to sit and wait. And could I have some clarification on your proposal, Councillor Bain? Did you read one of the four, or did you?
I read number two
Number two.
and stopped at,
Okay,
yeah, and then I stopped.
okay. So for my own clarity, by endorsing this, we would be like supporting it, correct? Like we would be signing on to this if we were to vote in favor of your motion, just so that I'm clear on that.
That's the way that I would understand
Okay.
it. We'd be, yeah, we'd be saying that, yeah, we agree with it.
Okay,
We agree with it, and we agree with it going up to the government.
yeah, as much as I do agree with it, I just think that there needs to be a little bit more time perhaps. Yeah. I'm more in favor of 3, myself.
We can either vote on the motion or I can withdraw it. I don't care either way.
Heather and I have spoken. I don't know if council would prefer to vote on this, or if we vote on it and it doesn't pass, is it done? And then, or do we go to another one?
Good enough.
We go to another one? Okay. Does anyone else want to speak to it? Councilor Long?
Against the support for it.
Okay. Would you like to rescind, Councilor? Okay.
Or rescinding it. I can withdraw the motion.
Councilor Vandenberg, do you have any input on this one? It's a fairly large scope.
It's a fairly large scope. At the end of the day, I mean, coal mines directly affect our water sources with what they have. You know, they're dumping into it. So I mean, anything to stop coal mining, I'm for. And you know, they've done a lot of research on this stuff, I believe. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. You know, let's vote on a different motion and just see how it proceeds, I suppose. I mean, I'm for signing on to it. That's
Well, we might have to split it. If that's the case. Why don't we vote on it then? Let's vote on it, and if we have a tie, then it goes defeated, and then we would go to the next anyways. Okay, well, let's do that. Okay, so we'll vote on Ted's or Councillor Bain's excuse me. The second suggestion. So all those in favor of endorsing the proposed policy? Okay, and all those opposed? Okay, so that's a 3-3, so the motion's defeated. And at this time, if someone would care to give me number 3 or another one, you're more than, excuse me, not to Councillor Long.
Council agree to accept the correspondence regarding the coal policy for Alberta 2022 and beyond for information purposes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Long. Okay, all those in favor? 2, 3. Okay, carried unanimously. Thanks, everyone. I'm totally with you, Councillor Vandenberg. I mean, stop it, great. I just don't know if signing a piece of paper at this point is.
This with the school interaction.
Well, yeah, there was no, yeah,
We leave everybody out of the discussion. We're just gonna get everybody to sign on because the court of public opinions isn't that. I would like to see more.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's the
I'm with you
principle
there,
behind the
Mike.
steps taken to get what your desires.
Okay, 8.4. Marigold 2022 audit financial statements. I can speak to this, or because I'm on the library board, Chief River Library Board, or Verna, if you'd like to speak to it, you're more than welcome to. No? Okay. The library's in really good position. They've got a lot of good people there. I believe I've said this before. You know, they're making the investments with the solar panels, moving ahead with that. They applied for a lot of the government grants that were available through COVID, and they invested those wisely and are set to return any outstanding balances before there are any penalties. There's not really a whole lot. Everything is in the report. It's a fairly large report. It's actually huge. I think it's bigger than the coal policy one. But yeah, if there's any direct or indirect questions that you'd like me to help answer, I can try my best, but everything's pretty self-explanatory in the report. So if someone wants to give me a motion on that, or if you want to speak to anything, please do. Councillor Bain.
That council agree to accept the following for information: 2021 Marigold Library audited financial statements, 2021 Marigold annual report, Marigold report, April 2022, Sheep River Library value of your investment, 2021. And I have nothing further to say.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Does anyone want to speak to that? Seeing none, all those in favor to accept the report? Carried unanimously. Wonderful. Okay. Moving right along. Get this report out of the way. Okay, reports and committee minutes. 9.1 tendering committee minutes from May 30th and then also from June 2nd. I see Councillor Thompson's hand is ready to go.
I'll give you a motion to accept the tendering committee, May 30th, 2022 and June 2nd, 2022 minutes as information.
Thank you. Okay, does anyone have any questions about these meetings? Well, other than the first meeting, all full session anyways. CEO Brown, do you have something?
There was a recommendation that did, just so council is aware, was a recommendation that came out of the June 2nd meeting, where the tendering committee bylaw be forwarded to council for review of the requirement and purpose of the tendering committee. So I'd like a council motion to be able to move that recommendation forward.
Okay, so we'll do Councillor Thompson's motion first, and then we'll give you that motion. Perfect. Okay, awesome. So all those in favor to accept this information, both reports, carried unanimously. And if I could have a motion in regards to the case,
I'll do it.
please
Again,
go ahead.
the tendering committee bylaw be forwarded to council for review of the requirement and purpose of the tendering.
Okay, wonderful. Anyone want to speak to it? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Council being made because he wanted to speak to it.
He usually jumps the gun when he puts his hand.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I do. I shouldn't do that. I did want to speak to it, but it's okay. It's not.
Would you like to speak to it now?
Just that it seemed as though the tendering committee had no choice as far as who we would pick to do these tender documents. And so the question was raised, why do we have a committee if we don't have a choice?
And there's no process in place really for us in the bylaw.
Pardon?
So there's no process really for us in the bylaw. So what's the point in having a committee if there's no real process for us to follow?
When it goes out for tender, with one of the two different methods of going out for tender, once the tenders come in, then they speak for themselves as far as who gets selected. So according to contract law, so why have us? Anyway, but that's something
why they
for
want us.
administration to take a look at. And the reason I was bringing this up is so that other people understood why the requirement.
I appreciate you bringing it up. Okay. Moving right along. 9.2. Community reports. I failed to submit mine. I told Bernard today, and gave everyone a hard time last time. Yeah, look at me. That's good. That's good. I'm gonna totally blame this one on my birthday because I can do that once a year. But beyond that, there's no excuse for me not having it, but it will be, I submitted it today. So mine is in. Thank you to everybody else for getting yours in. And take a motion to accept as information. And we'll move right along.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councilor Vandenhoek.
Make that motion for information.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of accepting our reports as information, thank you. And thanks everyone for doing them. Okay, 9.3, administrative inquiries and staff reports, our CAO report for May and June. I will pass this over to our CAO, Charlene Brown.
I don't think that there's anything really to say.
Okay.
It's all there and documented for you.
Yeah.
We're on our third week of our 3-stream curbside program right now. We will be collecting this is a weekly tonnage report that was available at the time of writing this piece. So we will be collecting them, and on your graphs that you get on those Visio tracking graphs at the end of the year, what we're going to be doing is putting the combined tonnage for the combined tonnage for Diamond Valley. So you can see how much diversion has gone from the landfill, and we'll just incorporate them both because really it's a joint program and it's more important to do it that way. The purpose is to divert from the landfill. So hopefully council will be accepting of that. Just having said that, we're rocking organics.
That's enthusiastic. Like that's crazy. That's awesome.
That's great, but it also means a lot of food waste too.
Well, it could be yard waste, that can be
True.
grass clippings,
Yeah,
all
good
that point, right? Like,
The if I may,
Yeah.
the concept of organics coming out of the landfill is to lessen the amount of methane that's going into the atmosphere. It's not necessarily about how much food, it's just compaction at the landfill. So what we're doing in essence is reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, on a regional scale.
Before I forget, I do have a resident question. Is there, is Okotoks going through and taking samples and checking to see what is going into each bin? Are they doing random selections?
All of the trucks have got cameras, and so as it's being dumped, we're able to see what has been dumped. When there is, we're going to call them contraventions of the bins, because there has, as people are learning about this whole process, we're aware of what bins are not filled properly. There's a little sticker that goes on those bins, and it helps create community awareness.
So the rumor that people are going to be digging through our garbage is incorrect.
That's correct. The only time that people will go through the garbage, and we have had that happen when we did our garbage audit at the beginning of the program, and we will continue to potentially do garbage audits, whether it's on the recycle or whether it's on the organics, or whether it's actually on the garbage, and see how well we're improving.
Could I ask a follow-up question?
No.
Hey, Deputy Mayor. Well, I was in Saxon Trail. I'm getting a lot of feedback about not accepting glass or soft plastics. Is there any, are we gonna be?
No, so,
Okay.
sorry about being so polite.
Sorry, that's what I just have to say.
What we were going to tell you is, although many communities, in conversations with other municipalities, they pull glass and they pull plastic, single-use plastics. There is not a market for them at this point in time. We're not the only ones that are having this issue. They're being pulled in Devon, they're being pulled in Edmonton, they're being pulled in lots of northern communities at this point in time because there is no market at this time. Once we find an alternative source for glass, that will be fine. So if it goes into the landfill, it gets crushed down and becomes sand. That's okay, because it's really organic and it doesn't create methane. Single-use plastics, or number 4, we'll call them, the triangle number 4. And I didn't know anything about all of this stuff before we started this process, so I'm not supposed to be this much involved in public works, okay? But the number 4 thing, actually what ends up happening on single uses, or soft plastics, they're sometimes called, is I think it's stuck in the grinders and it wrecks the machines. And so no facility is taking those. So if they're taking them at Okotoks Eco Center, they're not putting them into a facility that's actually recycling because it's wrecking the machines. And those machines are very expensive. And until there's another alternative solution to putting those single-use plastics or those number 4s in there, that's, they're not going to be accepted.
Okay.
The other piece that I'm going to tell you is that we're continuing on our conversations on the extended producer responsibility through Alberta municipalities. And those webinars are continuing. As of 2024, the province will be looking after all the bin pieces. Again, at that point in time, there might be some changes in the programming because when the province takes it, they will be shipping.
Okay. Thank you very much for clarifying. Deputy Mayor Clover.
Best advice to residents on what to do with the glass, and is it to bring it to the Okotoks Eco Center, or is it to put it in the black and throw it in the garbage?
The best thing you can do with your glass, if you want to conserve, or if you're one of those types of people, glass is usable time and time and time again. So if you have leftovers, you can put it in glass and you can microwave glass. So you can reuse glass, give it to your friends who actually use glass products. If you don't have any of those types of people around, again, then it would just go into the bucket. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so that's that one. Tendering meeting to award contract we had yesterday in that lovely weather. We went out and had our construction startup meeting. So we went through the areas that we're going to be doing work. It was kind of chilly out. Geotech also was on scene for what we needed to do on 4th, but they also did the skateboard park. Geotech yesterday as well in that icky weather. Town office upgrades, we were just having some deficiencies fixed. Some people might have heard some grinding going on earlier today, or they might have been still out there. We're doing some deficiency work, final substantial completion, I believe this tomorrow. We'll go through that. We're working on the sidewalk renewal and street parking access to the dog park. We had Tom's back at work, so thank God. It just happened. We had 3 water leaks that have occurred in the last 3 months, all in one area of town in Diamond Meadows. So it seems to be that the service line connections were probably not adequate material to deal with the soils that are up there. So we've had one water leak on one corner of the Diamond Crescent, and then on the other corner, and then one right adjacent to 4th. So we anticipate that there will be significant, and that's in the last 3 months. We've saved probably 250 cubes in the last 3 months finding these, but what we're also finding is because of the soil conditions, these water leaks are creating erosion areas underneath the road. And so when we're finding them, it's going to be really important that we fix them, or else we're going to be in a little bit more difficulty
Single.
than single.
Yes.
But it's, we're not sure really what the problem is. They're all copper service lines that have been put in, the service connection pieces. But they're just getting eaten right through and creating like dime holes in the connections and a lot of lost water. So just bringing that to you.
Thank you.
Planning is working with, they've had quite a few meetings with their mini working group. The department working group, so that's going well. We've had our stakeholder, there's a stakeholder vision workshop coming up in mid-June. I believe that council has got their information, and if you don't have your information, it'll be coming soon. We've also done our second consultation, and that just happened yesterday, so I'm just going to bring that to your attention as well. Our second developer industry offsite levies conversation. And we know the recommendation that came forward with JPAC, and the industry will probably be talking to Black Diamond Council, just to, so that you're aware.
Yeah, we knew that they wouldn't like it. I don't think they'll like any changes that we bring forward, so. Well, we just have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you know, you have to decide where side of the fence do we really want to be on and make that decision accordingly. And it's okay for the bylaws to be different. And processes to be different.
Yeah, because they will have to be different. It's different areas that we're dealing with, so.
Yeah. We know that there's an issue at Government Road North. So we have pulled out the stormwater management plan and forwarded that to Les's subcontractor to be able to take a look at, because it was one of the pieces that was addressed in the stormwater management plan. So we'll see what ends up happening, whether or not that work is done on warranty or not warranty, because this is the second time it's washed out with high waters. So, the sustainability group is working on a lawn buyback program, and they've been working on this, I think, for about 1.5 to 2 years, this lawn buyback program. And it's a really great initiative. Although, and with our new way of doing business, we do have to have new programs approved by the province. So it has financial implications. It's a really big program.
What is it? Can you explain it a bit? I
Well,
don't know that I've heard about it. Really? Have I?
who's on sustainability?
So essentially, they're looking at people transforming their yards into greenscapes or rock gardens or stuff like that to help reduce the water consumption. So essentially, you have a certain amount of your yard that you turn into a yardscape and you document it over a certain amount of time. Then you can get funding. I'm not sure what the funding is though.
Yeah, there's, you budgeted $6,000 for the program. And I'm not sure how long the program will go until the money's run out. But it's 75 cents a square foot, I believe.
That's,
Does that sound familiar? Yeah, okay. So if you want to do the square footage of your land, and then,
Now I remember.
and it's up to 1,500 square feet, I believe.
I think that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the program right in front of me, but I think that's what it was, what you guys.
Do a certain amount.
I'm remembering now because I think we talked about it at budget time.
We did.
Yeah.
Mhm. So anyway, they're working on that, but just to let everybody know that had, because it's a new program, I've also let our Parks and Rec manager know that I've had to forward that program up because it's a brand new program and it also has financial implications.
Yeah, minimum 500 square feet, maximum 1,500.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Transit trips are starting to, single trips, I changed my form. They are starting to go down a little bit. They've taken a bit of a slump in May in comparison to what they were in January and February. That's part of our learnings that we saw last summer as well, that in the nice weather, the trips tend to decline. We've had a couple incidences in May and 2 to June. Parks is out there cutting grass and doing stuff, and sometimes there's some issues. Also working with our contracted services on our health and safety program and our core. We're not going to do a documentation audit this year. We will be going through an action plan audit. Part of the reason why are we having an audit when we're not going to be an organization anymore in January? And so we're trying to work through the finite details of how the health and safety program will be running jointly in the new municipality. I think at this point in time, it will, we'll have to set up a new program. And we'll have to have the right people in the right places starting next year to be able to make that work. And hopefully our partners will be accepting this recommendation. And then there's a couple other things I did. Yeah, one of them being traffic control operation. That was fun.
That's what you were doing.
What I was doing. Yeah. I wasn't standing out there taking pictures of you guys on purpose. I was actually working. I had a little vest on. And we've also put together, Parks has done a report for you as well. We've also put together our first quarter capital projects, spreadsheets as per requested, and a confirmation of our reserves. Are there any questions about any of those?
No, I really appreciate the explanations, the notes to the spreadsheet. It's really appreciated so that you can actually see where the variance is and what it is. So I really appreciate that. It's a great report. So if you could pass that along.
Yeah.
I just have a question about Les's report.
Mm-hmm.
The pump track is noted in here.
Yeah.
And it says the contractor will be here on, oh no, excuse me, that's the mountain bike track. I'm just curious, the timeline for pump track. Like the dirt's been there for a long time, but I haven't heard anything about when it's gonna start, finish.
Because it's all based on volunteer labor. And we're having volunteers that have put that extra material down. There'll be volunteers that are going to do the expansion, and it will be working in conjunction now with the skateboard park.
Okay. Okay.
It will be completed before end of summer.
Okay, that's a good enough timeline for me. Thanks. Thank you. Any other questions, council? Thank you, CEO Brown. Does, by all means, if there's questions, otherwise we'll accept his information. I'll take a motion for it. Councillor Bain.
So moved.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone want to speak further to CAO Brown's report? Seeing none, all those in favor to accept this information? Wonderful, carried unanimously. Thank you so much, Charlene, for that. Okay. Pretty along. Okay, so 10.1 correspondence and information, municipal affairs OA memo, and I believe what I will accept all as information at the end. So I'll just go through the list. And you feel free just to stop me if I'm not looking at you. But we have the OA memo and report. I was kind of curious about this, and I'll just speak to it quickly because I was unfamiliar with such a report and memo. But prior to our sitting down, I got some clarification about that. The question that I had was just in regards to the OA kind of like approving what we had already approved, because I didn't understand that was going to be part of the process, as this is the first time I had heard about it. So that was my only thing in the report. And what I'm talking about is just a table that says like out of scope or approved. So that was just for me. The municipal affairs letter to residents, self-explanatory. really good news, the MSP extension. So that's good stuff. It's got to be completed by the end of the year.
That's
Yeah, which is great that they were able to help us out with that. Shannon Stubbs, MP, rural broadband, K collision, water leak concerns, the STARS, the 2022 receipt, yeah, and then another STARS thing, STARS of Alberta Volunteer Awards. And that's all there for your reading. So if anyone would like to speak to any of this stuff, there's quite a bit here, although some of it we've kind of seen to a certain extent.
they're doing work as I explained.
It's those bugs. Yeah, it's flying
They're
bugs.
starting to
Yeah,
get
just
together.
cracking the foundation.
Not Stranger Things.
So, yeah, I'll leave this up to, council. Someone wants to give me a motion to accept this information, we'll wrap it up.
Make that motion.
Okay, Councillor Van Hook, you're on the floor.
Set this, all this correspondence for information?
Thank you very much, sir. Question, Councillor Bain?
No.
You'd like not to speak to the motion?
Nervous twitch.
All those in favor to accept all this information? Thank you very much, everybody. Great stuff. Seeing nothing else at this point, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:27.